Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of Trump versus Jab from the Americas Championship. I looked over part 1 and realized that I was stuttering a lot and mumbling a lot and saying very a lot. So going to try to alleviate that as we move forward. Just keep things very slow so that it's easy for you on the ears. And in this particular game, we have mid-range Hunter from Jab versus the mid-range Paladin of Trump. Good choices on both sides, in my opinion. As far as Jab is concerned, the mid-range Hunter is the second best deck in his arsenal against Trump's lineup. And contrary to what people thought at the beginning of Conquest, you do want to bring out your best decks first so that you can get to that early lead and your last deck is able to have the most chances for you to win against your opponent's lineup. Trump bringing the mid-range paladin here, which in this case is a good choice. I'm actually just confused why he didn't bring it in the first game, excuse me, because I think it's definitely the best deck against Jab's lineup. But in any case, we can go over this match without any further ado. As far as the mulligan is concerned, Jab is perfectly fine keeping that entire hand because Web Spinner is decent, Animal Companion is decent. You obviously want that 2-drop, but if you keep this hand, you get 2 chances to draw it. Actually, two chances to draw into a 2-drop, which is reasonable odds considering that your Web Spinner and Animal Companion are your perfect 1 and 3 drops. Unleash the Hounds, he could toss, but the thing about going against Paladin is you're almost certainly going to be able to use Unleash the Hounds to good value, especially with the high possibility of going against the muster for battle. From Trump's side, he could keep the Harrison Jones for the weapon, but typically it's a bad keep just because a lot of the time your opponent just uses both charges of the weapon against your minions before they can use it for something like traps. So typically they use their entire Eagle Horn bow before you can get the Harrison Jones off, and it's sitting there dead in your hand, and you have to wait for the second one or play a Temple Harrison, which doesn't feel very good at all. So in general, you probably see just the Knife Juggler here. I actually don't remember the exact mulligan that these guys go for. True Silver could be another thing that he keeps. Equality would be not a very good keep at all, especially against Hunter, where you're not typically able to use it. In any case, we will see the mulligans. I'm sorry, I don't actually remember exactly what they mulligan here. But it does take quite a while for them to do it, actually. So this particular matchup of mid-range Paladin versus mid-range Hunter actually does favor the Paladin just by a little bit because it typically has the answers for the Hunter. In particular, they have the Outdoor Peacekeeper for the high mains, which is basically the linchpin of the mid-range Hunter. It's what allows it to get a lot of the wins and why people play it over Fast Hunter sometimes, or Face Hunter sometimes, excuse me. But if you can get the tempo, or if you can get tempo on the side of the mid-range Hunter, then you can ride that to a win. Or if the Paladin doesn't have the right answers for your stuff. But typically, Paladin has more ways to win with getting early board control or being able to have those answers. In any case, we do see that Jab did toss the Unleash the Hounds, and Trump did toss everything but the Knife Juggler. So pretty standard opening so far here. It's going to be the Web Spinner into Coin Knife Juggler so that it contests the Web Spinner and essentially kills it for free, whether it be by combat or from the Knife Juggler. Jab picks up the Quick Shot and goes for that over the Mad Scientist. Kind of an interesting decision. The reason why he does that is because he doesn't want his Web Spinner to die for free. And say if Trump has something like a Shielded Mini-Bot, he's basically behind on board from there on if he has something like the Mad Scientist. If he plays the Mad Scientist onto the board, which we do see Trump had picked up the Shield Mini-Bot the following turn. So say if Trump played the Mini-Bot, and it would make sense to play. It would make sense, excuse me, to play the Knife Juggler before the Mini-Bot in that situation. So if he did have the Mini-Bot there, then the Quick Shot would have been much better, especially because the Knife Juggler could have sniped off the Web Spinner and then gone face, and then basically the Mad Scientist has to trade into the Knife Juggler, and then from there Jab's behind on board by a lot. So definitely agree with his decision if you think about like all the ramifications of what Trump could possibly have. Trump picks up an outer peacekeeper, which helps immensely, obviously, in that situation. Jab, on the other hand, does get a 3 mana beast right on time off that web spinner to be able to pair with his other web spinner, and just immediately plays it out because obviously it contests the outer peacekeeper and fills up his curb. Obviously, it allows him to play the Ram Wrangler the very next turn. So pretty obvious so far from Jab. The only thing that's been tough for him was that quick shot, which, I mean, if you go deep into it, it's definitely something that makes sense. So from Trump here, he has 2 options. He can he can trade basically his outer peacekeeper into the Cobra and then play the Murloc Knight. The only problem with that is that it's a little bit weak to something like Kill Command, and your opponent may be able to get tempo onto the board if they have something like a 2-drop into Kill Command. Yeah, 2-drop into Kill Command. And the other thing is that it could be pretty weak against something like, Houndmaster. And from there, you might not be comfortable just making a dude every single turn, since you might not be able to pick up something next turn to be able to do. So he kills off the 1/1, and by doing that, it allows him, or excuse me, by playing the mini bot and making a dude, it allows him to do that because now this Cobra has nothing to kill. And then on the next turn, he can use Quartermaster on his 1/1 if it just gives him more options in the future. And Jab doesn't play. he plays the Ram Wrangler. He gets the Jungle Panther off of it, and he wants to play greedy and try to get a bunch of value off of this Cobra. But looking at the situation, the 3/2 just kind of trades too well, so he decides to go off and kill it. Instead of playing for the greed, playing for the value of getting multiple things killed by that. Just the board doesn't really fit very well with what he's trying to do. So Trump has 2 options here again. He has the ability to Consecrate and clear the board, and it would be basically a shielded mini bot versus nothing. Or he could play the Quartermaster and trade the 1/1 into the new 3/3 into the 3/3, and have a 2/5 and a 2/2 Divine Shield versus a 4/2, which if you think about it, is better because both of them trade very, very well against it. Dang it, I said very, very again. So they both trade well against the 4/2s. That's the reason why he did this. And also Consecrate is something that can be used later. It's a good removal tool for later. Jab plays the Savannah Highmane, obviously, and decides to actually attack face, which makes sense because either Trump can deal with the Jungle Panther, or he can deal with the Highmane. It's hard for him to deal with both. And he's already seen 1 Elder Peacekeeper. So basically he's getting free damage here, and if, for instance, his opponent has something like Consecrate, like a way to deal with the Savannah Highmane and Consecrate, then he loses his Jungle Panther for free. So he's thinking that he's going to be able to get free damage here, and he more or less does. On the other side, Trump doesn't have a way to deal with the Highmane, but he can deal with the Jungle Panther and provide a threat of his own by playing this Murloc Knight. Unfortunately for him, it only makes a Raider, so it doesn't really do too much, but it's still something that Jab has to kill. And Jab actually picks up the Starving Buzzard off of one of the previous web spinners. So he has the Starving Buzzard and the Unleash for future turns, but he's unable to use that now, obviously. And by picking up these, and when he picks up the second Unleash, he immediately goes for the Unleash because there's nothing else in his hand to do, and there's plenty of hounds to be spawned, obviously, off this board. So yeah, plays all the hounds, plays the Mad Scientist as well, and uses Hero Power this turn. He wants to be kind of mana efficient for the future. So he wants to get as much damage in via that Hero Power as possible. There's only a limited amount of healing for the Paladin. There's Lay on Hands and there's Healbot, but other than that, it's not like their Hero Power generates them, health like the Priest or like the Warrior. So getting the Hero Power does help in the end. So Trump decides to trade his 2/5 into his opponent's Highmane and then Consecrate. He could have gone for Consecrating first and then hitting one of the 2/2s, but he's afraid of something like, obviously the Houndmaster and obviously the Ram Wrangler. So that's something that, it's definitely something to consider. Jab finds his second Highmane, which is obviously a really good top deck in this situation. And Trump There's really nothing for him to do here other than play Tyrion. He's going to be, freezing one of these guys back. So either it's that or, another dude and the quartermaster. So in his eyes, as long as he gets rid of this mad scientist, there's nothing to pop the divine shield. So I mean, obviously this is a really bad trade for Jab to go for, to trade a high mate into the divine shield. Little does he know that there's the old combo, the Buzzer Unleashed combo. So it draws him 2 cards, and he's able to pop the Divine Shield, and he's able to draw 2 more cards off of the Savannah Hyman. And this basically flips the game completely around. Trump was had a pretty comfortable life total. His opponent was running out of cards, and he had, his hand was kind of bad, but it wasn't the worst ever. He obviously had the quartermaster to be able to get a board, but yeah, obviously this completely turned the game around. Trump has to kill this buzzard. He also plays the heal bot as well. He wants to save his quartermaster to be able to buff up 2 minions on turn 10 when he can replay his silver hen recruit from the turn before, or the silver hen recruit that got frozen back. So he goes for the heal bot here. It's almost as much power as playing a dude and quartermastering anyway. So he's saving that combo for the future. And Jab immediately plays this bow. He's played Hunter a billion times, so he knows how to do this. He basically plays the bow on 10 mana, gets the Dr. Boom mount, makes sure that the heal bot doesn't get frozen back. And from Trump's side, he basically has nothing to do, and he has to go for the play that he mentioned before. So there's nothing really to kill either. He can only kill the 2/2. When I was watching this live the first time, this is like the play that I came up with as well. There's nothing else to do at all. You can equality, but then you're taking 7 damage to the face, so it doesn't really make any difference. You might as well use your equality later and do minion to minion combat. So, yep, he plays the recruit, makes a recruit. He and then does the quartermaster, kills off the 2/2. Unfortunately, Jab has enough damage to kill him. So yeah, it's just this matchup goes pretty quickly, and or kind of quickly. Jab gets pretty fortunate with the starving buzzard, but that's just how this matchup works, or that's how the deck works, excuse me. And is able to take a quick 2-0 lead. But don't worry, all you Trump fans, Trump will come back. He will at least force the game 5. I've already said that this will go to 5 games, so and in case there is that comfort knowing that. And yeah, Trump, but Jab does go to that 2-0 lead, and at this point I was thinking Trump was going to be eliminated really quickly, and I was kind of worried for him. But I do like Jab a lot, so I was not too sad at the same time. But anyway, there was an interview here with Trump, and then we went to the third game, which was obviously Jab's last deck. And Trump goes ahead and goes with the Paladin once more, which is going to deal decently well with the deck from Jab. Obviously, the Flamewaker can cause problems, but Trump has one of the best answers to deal with it in that True Silver Champion, so it makes sense for him to go with that. And Trump actually does get the Zombie Chow right off the bat, which is really good for him in this matchup, especially going first. It's something that most aggro decks have a really hard time dealing with. So despite the Zombie Chow, Jab decides to play out the Mana Worm, because if you wait for he could have waited for playing in the future, but you eventually have to get rid of this Zombie Chow, and this is maybe one of the better ways to go about it. And obviously you can use your hero power to kind of aid it in combat. This turn, Jab decides to hero power down the 1/1 and go face, which allows Trump to kill it the following turn with a muster for battle. But Jab does have the turn 3 Flamewaker into coin into Arcane Blast, so that's it does allow him to kind of even up the board. Unfortunately, the first 2 shots from the coin go straight onto the Zombie Chow, so it kind of screws up his plan a bit. And then from there, Trump is able to kill off this Flamemaker with his True Silver. I'm kind of going over this like matter-of-factly, but I mean, it's pretty obvious decisions on both sides. In fact, Trump takes a long time with his decision for some reason, so I'm actually going to skip ahead. For me, it's pretty obvious to go for the True Silver just because Flame Waker is kind of the almost the lifeblood of the Tempo Mage, other than the few late game options that it has. So yeah, it definitely makes sense to just get rid of it right away. So sorry for skipping ahead there, but Trump does take a long time with that decision. Jab, he had nothing to do the following turn, so he played the counter spell, and Trump, not knowing what it was, played the Harrison Jones to see if it was Mirror Entity. Didn't want the Pallid Shredder to come up because he can't deal with that cleanly, at least not with his weapon. And then Jab again just has nothing to do, so he pings and uses the Flame Waker and gets rid of it. This is a very, very good spot. Keeps doing that. This is a good spot for Paladin, obviously, because you want to be ahead at this point in the game. But Tempo Mage has ways to come back and has tempo turns in the future. Very interesting card here in the Grand Crusader, and you see the smile there from Trump, just kind of like, what is going on here? Trump still doesn't know if it's effigy or not, or effigy or counterspell or not. So he does an interesting play here. He goes for the Outer Peacekeeper on it and actually uses his True Silver Charge and the excuse me, the Shredder to kill it, and leaves his 1/1, which is kind of interesting to me. He obviously values his 1/1 over his True Silver Charge, which makes a little bit of sense, considering he has 2 more weapons in his hand. But it doesn't. It's kind of a weak turn as far as getting rid of his opponent's board. What he doesn't realize is that the card that Jab got off of the Grand Crusader was that Consecrate. So it hurts Trump in the long run to do this. And these are actually pretty straightforward turns. Sorry that I don't have any more analysis on top of this. Well, it's not that straightforward, but it's kind of like the line that Trump decided to go for, and it's nothing too spectacular, nothing too deep. On the other side, Jab counters this by going for Dr. Boom, because obviously he's green. And to counter this, Trump actually does something that the commentators didn't suggest, but I definitely agree with, and you'll see in a second. I think I'm just going to skip forward here. There's not a lot to talk about here. So instead of throwing both the 4/2 and the 3/3 into the 7/7, what he does is he uses those guys instead to trade for the Boom bots, and then uses Equality to trade his 1/1 into the Dr. Boom, which I definitely agree with. And what that does is allows you to have a bigger board for the future and allows you to have more power. And obviously, if the Boom bots go well for you, then it makes it so your opponent doesn't have many things to ping. And in particular, if it doesn't hit the Shredder, then it allows it to have second life. And the fact that it's a 4/1 doesn't even matter. And this Equality, I mean, obviously he has to play the Consecrate first to get rid of the counterspell. But the Equality only hurts him for 1 in this instance. Obviously he had a little bit of fortune with the Boom bots, but it only hurts him for 1, and he's able to get rid of this Boom bot, or excuse me, the Dr. Boom, pretty efficiently. And he plays a dude out just because he has the Shield Mini bot in hand. It's a very Trump play. He decides to go for just going for as many dudes as possible. Jab, unfortunately for Trump's sake, has the Consecrate there. In this case, the Vitality Totem is actually pretty good for Trump. It saves him 8 health in this situation. In this case, Trump, I don't remember if he goes for the hero power. Yeah, he does go for the hero power. Just maximizing everything as much as possible. Obviously, that Dr. Boom is a very, very good top deck, but he definitely has... I mean, his deck is more dense than that of his opponent. Jab has things like Archmage Antonitis, and as you saw, the Dr. Boom and the Rag, but that's about it. So it's normal to expect Trump's deck to top deck bigger things like that. From Jab's side, it's kind of too much to deal with that Dr. Boom. He can't really play a Rag or anything. It's pretty bad in the situation, obviously, because the Dr. Boom just kills it. So better to just do what he did and kill it off right away. Trump gets pretty fortunate with that Soulfire. I don't remember actually what he does in this turn. Obviously, the Cog Hammer is an option, but he goes for the True Silver to decide to kind of start getting rid of this board. One thing he could have done is gone for the Mustafa battle and switched to True Silver afterward, because since he has so many weapons, like the charge or the Light Justice doesn't really matter. But yeah, he goes for this. He doesn't want to give the Powder Shredder charge, and the definitely the boom bots to the face are actually the damage to the face is actually relevant at this point, since Jab probably has to deal with it. Jab does pick up a pretty lucky Flame Waker in the situation, but the Boombots conspire to kill the Flame Waker in the end after after he plays his two minions. So so Trump's gamble kind of worked out in the end, even though Jab had one of the better options to deal with it. It just ended up the Boombots ended up killing the Flame Waker anyway. So it definitely makes sense for him to do that. So Trump, knowing that probably is Mirror Entity, decides he can't play the Tyrion Ford Ring. And what does he do here? I forgot. Oh yeah, he attacks and he actually plays the Cog Hammer into the Muster for Battle, which is kind of, I don't really, since his opponent got a 2-1, I don't actually agree with this. I think it would be better to go with the opposite order. Like, he starts going for this and then he decides he wants to go for the Cog Hammer. But the 1-1 Divine Shield trades with it anyway, so I think it would have been better to go the opposite direction. But he does go for that. It's not the worst play in the world. It's perfectly fine. Obviously the weapon doesn't really matter too much as far as the 1 health or the 1 attack versus 2 attack. And you do get 4 charges out of the Light Justice versus the 3 from the Cog Hammer. So there is that. But yeah, he does go for this play to make sure he gets the kill. I mean, I guess there's situations where it could make a difference. This sets up for next turn, or it makes it really hard, obviously, for Jab to be able to play this Rag very efficiently. And it also allows Trump to be able to play Tyrion in a future turn if he can just get this Mirror Entity out of the way. So yeah, Jab goes for the Ragnos. It hits a 1-1, not a very big deal. He does have that Blingtron for the future to be able to deal with certain things, to override maybe a future weapon by Trump. Though he's seen most of the weapons, but Trump still can't deal with this Rag. There's really not much analysis again. Sorry, this is kind of pretty obvious stuff. No mistakes made by these players in these turns. Trump obviously not being foolish enough to go for the Tyrion before the Knife Juggler. So pretty straightforward plays by both sides. And kills off the mini bot, because if you throw both 1-1s into the Knife Juggler, then you're getting rid of 2 minions, which gives your Rag better chances to hit something good. And at this point, your opponent has to ping the Tyrion anyway, so you don't really worry about your 1-1s dying to a ping. So that's a very good decision by Trump, actually. And Jab unfortunately doesn't have enough mana to be able to kill this Tyrion Ford Ring and play the Blingtron on the same turn. Obviously he can't wait for the Rag to kill it and then play the Blingtron, even if he got a lucky 1-in-5 hit. So he has to go over this kind of awkward play and fireball it and then wait for the Blingtron the following turn. Unfortunately, Trump does pick up a heal bot, which allows him to, after this hit on the Knife Juggler, after he picks up this heal bot, he's able to kind of kill this Rag without really any fear of dying to anything in the future. Do something like, ping fireball or something like that. So it's a pretty good pickup for Trump. He doesn't end up going for it. Every other line really is kind of bad because you're leaving up Rag, which is you eventually want to kill anyway. And if he kills the anti-kill bot, it causes problems for you, obviously. So he eventually does go for the line. I'm just going to skip ahead again. Sorry about that. And yes, he goes for the line. Oops, sorry. He goes for the line where he kills it, soul fires the other guy, and plays a dude. And Jab is very sad about it. But Jab gets to override the weapon. And here's where I'm a little bit surprised that he plays out this Sorcerer's Apprentice into a 2/3 weapon. Partly because Trump can easily kill it. I think Jab is kind of all in at this point, and he doesn't really care if the weapon kills off the 3/2, but I think he could have maybe used it in a different turn. And maybe Trump would have gone for something else. Though the damage to Jab's face is kind of relevant. Trump with a very good top deck, but again, his deck is definitely more dense than Jab's, so not really something that really matters all that much. What this does do is allow him to kind of hit the 3/2 without much repercussion, and he eventually goes for the hero power, which definitely makes sense because of all the juggles that he'll be able to get next turn. Um, Obviously, Trump. I keep skipping ahead of Trump's turn, but he does deliberate, and it's something. It's a very good quality that he has in these matches to be able to deliberate every single turn and think about every single turn. There's situations where I've seen players make mistakes because they didn't go through every single play in their head. They didn't think about every single possibility. So definitely good on Trump to be able to do that. He has the Justicar to be able to Justicar and then Hero Power here. But he gets just as many pings off, I think. Yeah, Justicar would be 3 pings. This gives him 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, gets 4 pings this way. So this makes more pings, makes more guys on the board. Unless his opponent top 6 Flame Strike, this is like by far the superior option, especially because Justicar doesn't have much health. So, yeah, definitely a good play by Trump. And he gets the Sylphin Spirit Walker, I think it's called. Yeah, definitely a good play by Trump. And this is part of the reason why he's able to make this play was because of his decision to hero power the turn before. And he was at a high enough life total to be able to make that gamble. No secret comes off the Mad Scientist, which is really good information for Trump going forward in the potentially final 2 games of the series, knowing that there's 2 secrets and his mirror entity and counterspell. At this point, Jab sees the board and he's like, well, if I kill this Murloc Knight, it just gives him a card. I can't sit there and kill off this Spirit Walker, and then everything on the board is a threat, so I can't deal with all these threats. I might as well go face. It's at this point that I think Trump goes for Hero Power, Justicar Hero Power, and basically seals out the game because I mean Trump has gotten through all of Jab's huge threats, and yeah, there's nothing really for Jab to do from here on out. Actually, no. He plays Hero Power and then he gets the War Leader and then it's lethal. Sorry. So yeah, and he just ends up winning the game right then and there. And so Trump takes that game. Very well played by him. If you want to see games 4 and 5, sorry spoilers, then click on to part 3.